Picks and roll. And a good afternoon, everybody. Sean Brace, Sean Barnard. Sean Barnard covers all things 76ers. They're off to Cancun. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're home. Who knows? But they did have a trip to Cancun. The NBA playoffs roll on, though. Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals. And last night, game one in Boston between the Pacers and the Celtics was fantastic. Good afternoon, Sean Barnard. Of course, it was great on a number of fronts. And at the top of that chart is the fact that I challenged you on yesterday's daily ticket to give us a same game parlay winner. And you took that challenge to heart. And you said, not only am I going to give you one, I'm going to give you two. And folks, if you don't believe me, the video's out on socials right now at FoxPHO Gambler. The boy called his shot, and the boy cashed both same game parlays on DraftKings Sportsbook. Are you kidding me? Game one, Eastern Conference Finals, Pacers Celtics, Sean Barnard, roaring round of applause. Let's start there. Let's not even talk about how the game ended just yet, but man, out to shoot 2-2, plus 900, plus 375, 385, whatever that second was. Unbelievable, bro. Unbelievable.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I know the official challenge was over 3.5 throughout the entirety of these two series. So still a little work to do. Still got to hit two, but about as good a start as I could have had with that. So yeah, I think I pushed the envelope with kind of this whole conversation with going two in the same day for to kick things off. But 2 for 2, so that helps the odds quite a bit and off to a hot start there.
Look, there's ways that we can obviously gloat about this, and I think we have to. We should, because the way it was, like, the challenge just came about in my head. I said, we'll probably have 6 or 7 in the West. We'll probably have 6 or 5 in the East, hopefully more, and I said, all right, well, if you give me 13 games, if you give me 12 games, what's a fair number? I think we set the number at 3.5. Which, look, at the end we'll find out what the math is, but hell, that jump right from the start, plus 12, plus 1,300, whatever it is in the kitty, I think we're going to come out on top no matter what moving forward. So nice work for you, game one. What was the reasons behind some of your plays? And of course, they came to fruition. They played out. What was something that you thought we were going to see and exactly played out like that last night in game one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Celtics and Pacers are both pretty same game parlay friendly teams, that they both get up and after it. They're teams that score a lot. There's a lot of production that goes around. So I was happy to jump on that opportunity. As I kind of mentioned yesterday, that these are very contrasting series, that we're going to see a lot of run and gun, a lot of offense in the Pacers and Celtics. When you look like a night like tonight against the Mavericks and Timberwolves, it's going to be more slow paced, more defensive oriented. So I was all over that from that side of things, including with the over and directly in one of those parlays there. So I think was a lot of points on the board and look to take advantage of them. So I've liked watching both these teams quite a bit so far in the playoffs, and hopefully we're in for a good series, not one that Boston wraps up pretty early.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is that was going over the number no matter overtime or not. I think the total was 222, and we were already over that, if I'm not mistaken. So it wasn't too much of a shock there. But you're right, from the standpoint of teams that go out there and deliver. We know that the Pacers are exactly that. And Boston could be a little tricky at times, but you were really locked in on Indiana more than anything, correct, from the player prop standpoint?
Yeah, looking at it yesterday, Derek White was the only Celtics individual player that I had for over 25.5 points, rebounds, and assists, but hit on Halliburton over points and assists at 25.5. Got some action from TJ McConnell at over 16 points, rebounds, and assists. Siakam 35 there, and then Nembhard with the 2 threes. So yeah, I was more Pacers oriented. I did believe they would come out with a punch in that game. They absolutely did, but just were unable to finish the deal completely. But was pretty satisfied and encouraged by the way that the Pacers did play overall, although their youth did show down the stretch there.
Yeah, we'll get into fumbling the bag in just a second, which is, by the way, the name of this episode here today. But once again, DraftKings Sportsbook was showing a 9.5 at tip. Pacers, of course, covered that. Final score 133-128, although it did get a little dicey then in a couple final minute of that overtime period. Total was 261. Final score 261 points between the two teams. And again, the original total was 23. All right, let's talk about the game itself. And we were out last night. Shout out to our good friend Sim from the Cut app. We went out and had some dinner and with a couple from the Gambler Gang, and then we went to a local establishment and bellied up for the second half. And next thing you know, it goes to overtime, and Jaylen Brown hits that 3-pointer. Now, Sean, I pick up the timeline, and we weren't able to watch it in great detail and hear what the announcers are saying and break out the clipboard and all that. But everybody is yelling at the fact that Jaylen Brown was not fouled. Once again, the Celtics were down by 3 with about 6-7 seconds left. Brown escapes to the corner. Pascal Siakam late getting there. Brown pulls up, and a difficult shot hits a game. It hits, the shot that ties it up and sends it to overtime. Like, how do you see that when people are saying they should have fouled him, should have fouled? Where? When should the foul have taken place?
Yeah, so I'll take this in two parts with this specific situation, then the kind of the larger conversation about fouling. For this specific situation, I think probably the Pacers were intending on fouling, and then when the pass went to the corner, that's too high risk of a situation to foul there. That, like, if you get him going up for 3 free throws, attempting a 3-pointer that you foul him, that's a really bad foul that can cost you things. So I think from Siakam's calculations, and you even saw in that play, like, he was doing everything possible not to foul there because he put himself in kind of a tough spot. I've seen him getting grilled for the hands behind the back and not having a hand in Brown's face, but he really was just trying not to foul. And honestly, that was the right call there. The only way that you have a chance to lose that game in that situation is if you foul him and he hits the shot. And obviously Brown did hit the shot. So if you did foul him there, you're putting your team in a tough spot. Now, the larger conversation about like fouling when you're up 3, obviously it prevents a team from getting up a 3-point chance is the appeal to it. I'm personally against that mindset and I always have been. It has worked out negatively for several teams in this playoff, so I certainly hear the other side of it. The way I've always looked at it is your only chance to lose the game is if you do foul when you're up 3. Like in that specific situation, Brown hit the 3-pointer. The Pacers had a chance to win it at the end. I can live with that as like a coach, as that being the chance. Say they were to foul Jaylen Brown while he's still on the floor. He hits the 2 free throws. Then you go down the other end. You got to hit your free throws. If you miss those, you're putting yourself in kind of the opportunity. Obviously, you should believe in your team to be able to knock down free throws. But if you miss one, all of a sudden the door is open for you to have a loss. So I personally, in general, am anti-fouling when you're up 3. But, I mean, from the Pacers' perspective, that could have been a chance to, wind down the clock more. You can look at this either way. I think Siakam did the right thing by not fouling in that situation because we very well could have a much different tune if we're talking about a potential 4-point play for the lead to end that one. So it's tough. It didn't work out for the Pacers, but I don't think he should be heavily criticized for that play there.
Yeah, I got the replay on in front of me right here. And the one thing I would say, again, I just don't know. Look, there's definitely some picking going on at the top. There's definitely a nice screen to allow Brown to escape to the corner. I'm again trying to look at the replay here. Yeah, Halliburton could have probably done a better job guarding on the inbounds pass, right? Like that's just I don't know. Again, it's Monday morning quarterback. Yeah. Of course I'm going to sit here and say that they could have defended it better. But for the people that are throwing a hissy fit on not fouling, it happens so fast. I just don't know where you're going to foul him. And to be honest with you, Sean, very lucky they didn't call an and one.
Yeah,
because we've seen that call. That was in Boston in the moment. If that was at MSG's shooting a free throw, you know that. So it's just the reality. He was underneath him. He was clearly in his. He definitely bumped him. He touched him. So he very well could have been called for a foul. Anyways, moving off of that. The turnovers, I think they finished with 21.
Yeah.
And it's just inexcusable. And I don't know, like Rick Carlisle said it was on him. That loss is on him, and that's fine. But he's not out there dribbling the ball. It's just so frustrating. Is this something that, we should be concerned about moving forward here? Because that's the mark of a clear team that has no business in winning this series, right? If they can't dribble out, if they can't bring the ball over half court without turning it over, and they did, as I said, 21 times to the tune of that, that's just troublesome. Is that something that we should be looking at moving forward here, or is this possibly a one and move on, and they're going to learn from the situation last night?
Yeah, I think they will learn from it, but this is like an overarching thing. Now, granted, the Celtics are not the gold standard for execution in crunch time either, and they made plenty of mistakes in their own right last night. But this is a Pacers team that, to some extent, has played above expectations this year. Now is in a position to win, which I don't think a lot of people expected. The average age of this team is 25.1 years across the entire roster. So it's not like they have this vast experience. They do have some veterans. Pascal Siakam obviously has a ring. TJ McConnell's been around. There are guys on this roster, but there's a lot of young guys. Ben Shepherd, a high-level role player for this team, a dude that is a rookie that was playing in college last year. They've got a ton of other young guys. Even Halliburton himself is still up and coming and has not reached his peak as a player, I feel. So this is a working, learn in progress situation for this Pacers team. I do think specifically the one that Carlisle took responsibility for was not calling timeout on that inbounds that went off Siakam's hands there. I do think coaches are way too gun shy about calling a timeout in that situation. You can just prevent a lot from going wrong if you just kind of are a little more proactive in that approach and not allowing these high risk passes. The Pacers definitely did have a chance to win that game and ultimately did not come out on top. So they have to wear that to some extent. But in the long run, this is valuable experience for all these guys. They're going to get better from it from game one, and they still gave Boston a fight. So still a little bit of a hat tip, even though definitely frustrating execution down the stretch there.
Turnovers, look, it was a great game, and no one's going to really harp on that. Maybe a lot from the Pacers' perspective, maybe a little bit more from the Pacers' perspective, but Celtics still had 14 turnovers in their own right and 21-14. That's 35 total turnovers in an Eastern Conference final game one. That is some ugly hoop, but at the end of the day, it was a great and entertaining game. It really was a fun watch, and whether you had action on it at the +9.5, +10, or parlays, same game parlays, anything, like even if you didn't, you were a fan of that last night. And that's what it's all about. It's the way it should be. Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals. That's all we want. We just want to be entertained at this point in time. And oh, by the way, win some bets over here. One other note from the box score: fast break points, only 16-14, and then points in the paint, again, extra period, get it, but 56-58. A lot of points in the paint. I would just, again, I don't know what the average is for fast break points in a game, but I would imagine, like, I would thought we would have got a little bit more with the Pacers there. Wasn't the case, but points in the paint, seems like there was a scoring in bunches down low. Fact that Porzingis isn't in there, do you see that getting cut in half if Porzingis returns, whether game 3 or game 4? Who knows what the reality is at that situation? I think they're just dangling the carrot. I don't know if we see Porzingis, to be honest with you. We'll see. But from the standpoint of that box score to those numbers, is that eye-popping in your mind?
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard there. And like in general, I think they're pretty, I guess they're not very lenient with what they qualify as a fast break point when breaking these down. Like, for example, throughout the regular season this year, Indiana ranked 4th in the NBA with 16.1 fast break points per game. So around their average there. And for what it's worth, Boston has averaged 14.8 fast break points per game. So I wouldn't say like it's something that I'm incredibly concerned about. I do think Boston did a pretty nice job of making sure they're getting back, not allowing some of those outlet passes to become available, having guys play free safety for those types of situation. And that's when Indiana tends to get themselves in trouble when they're forcing it. I don't think that was the root of a lot of the turnovers last night. I do think it's a credit to Boston for getting back, but the points in the paint situation, like, Indiana does a really nice job generating layups, even in situations where it's not fast break, where there's a ton of movement within the half court setting, where Halliburton's constantly passing the ball, moving off ball, things like that, that it's very fluid, that they do a nice job for just opening up opportunities for others. So neither of those jump out to me a ton. I think ultimately that we will have stretches in the series where things open up and there is a little bit more running gun than proved to be the case, but both teams still had no problem filling up the basket last night. So no major concerns there.
133, 128. Just to let you know, DraftKings Sportsbook, of course, already flashed to game 2. It was down as low as 8, if I'm not mistaken, as high as 9.5. So it's been a little all over the place. Now holding steady at 9. 224.5 is our total. And that one, again, up a tick from 223.5 to 224.5 from game 1. Money line plus 300 for the Pacers, minus 380 there. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that game because I know what everybody's thinking. It's exactly what I said last night, but had an opportunity to really think a little bit more on it, and I'm kind of a little bit flip-flopping here. But before we dive into that game too, Last night, the question to Tyrese Halliburton was, does it help to know that they didn't win the game as much as you guys lost the game? And he said, quote, well, they did win the game and we lost it. So, yeah, look, if there's anything positive from this Pacers game, I think, they went into the jungle in a
Yeah.
game one, just maniac atmosphere, and they balled out like they knew they would. They've been playing at a high level. Let's transition into game two, Sean. And what I said last night, and I'm pretty sure everybody's thinking, is that how will the Pacers recover from that? They're not going to be able to get it going. They're going to walk in, they're just going to be shell shocked from what took place in game one. I don't see it that way. I don't. And I think this double-digit spread, this 9-point spread, is just too many points. And I like the Pacers to make it interesting again. And more specifically, I like the Pacers in every game from here on out. I will take them plus the points. Absolutely. What are they going to be catching at home? 3, 2?
I would think even potentially a little more than that. That 4 or 5 feels like that's on the table for my mind. I don't think the odds makers believe in this Pacers team. I don't think a lot of people believe in this Pacers team. I think that's a little bit of a bad hand here. Now, granted, like the Celtics are absolutely more talented. The starting lineup, the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, all these guys are, you could argue, have more top end talent than even even Halliburton. I might even throw in that conversation for sure. Tatum and Brown do with that. So there is a gap here. As far as like game one specifically, it feels a lot to me like after that Knicks Sixers game in which the referees after the game admitted that things were called wrong in that game 2 matchup. It feels a little bit like that. Obviously not as much of a refereeing like issue here, but just the fact that it was within reach. And what I took away from last night is the Pacers brought their A game for almost the entirety of that game and let their foot off the gas a little bit at the end. You cannot do that against a team of Boston's caliber or a real deal contenders caliber. So that's got to be the takeaway on their end, that from start to finish, whether it is 48 minutes or 53 if they go to overtime, that they're being locked in from start to finish. That's what they got to make sure that they do for the entirety of a game. So hopefully that is the case. I still think they should be encouraged by the way things played out, the way their offense worked. I don't even think Boston played particularly bad last night. I think it was more about the Pacers being good. So they should rest a little bit easy like that, but that doesn't make the result feel any better.
Is there a matchup that caught your attention after game one or during game one that you might be looking at from a prop next in game two?
Nembhard was certainly hungry. He definitely was getting after a ton. I'll also say, like, I was impressed with how much Tyrese Halliburton was able to overcome the Drew Holidays and Derek White matchups that were thrown his way. He complimented Holiday after the game, said he's probably the toughest defender that he's ever had against him, which is a nice little hat tip there. And I don't know if I would be putting that on the table in game one of a 7-game series here. But I thought Halliburton did a nice job, particularly playing a little more off ball than he's comfortable with. That there was a ton of like give and go situations where he was creating looks. That's going to be effective. That's still going to be here, and that's really difficult to defend. So I was encouraged with what Indiana did to get Halliburton free, and I do think that that needs to continue moving forward.
TJ McConnell, we talked a lot about him yesterday. Just such a low number, and he's energy off the bench, and he's going to be bringing it. But he finished with 20 total in the combo department from points, rebounds, and assists. Nice work there with his number at 17.5. Again, we talked a lot about it yesterday. Is that you're going to be looking at possibly for game two?
Possibly. He just makes things happen. And I do think like his impact on the game is even higher than what the box score measures there. So that always makes me a little nervous from the handicapping perspective there. But he is a guy that is important to the series, that he is an X factor. He does change the game when he steps on the floor. And that little mid-range jumper is straight up automatic at this point. Like, I know you mentioned to me last night with Peyton Pritchard being unable to guard him that you got to get him off the floor. I think there's a point where it's just TJ getting to his spots. That there's not much you can do. That could have been Jaylen Brown on TJ McConnell for some of these, and I still think that he's filling it up. That he just looks like he has found a flow with the way that he's playing. He's found his spots on the floor that he loves getting to, and that's kind of always been the case with his game. All that little kind of short range jump shots are his forte as a player, as well as some creative, crafty, up around the rim type finishes that he's good at. So I think TJ deserves more credit for playing well than anyone else playing bad, and I do think that carries on throughout this series.
Excellent. Well, game one in the books, and game two tomorrow night at 8:10 p.m. Once again, 9-point spread on DraftKings Sportsbook. Make sure you use Brace as the promo code. Also, take advantage of all their promos, especially tonight. They got a 3-point promo going off. They got no sweat, same game parlays, which I took advantage of yesterday. And of course, if you were to fire on Sean Barnard's same game parlays, you didn't have to worry about the no sweat factor there. So nice win, Sean Barnard. Nice wins, plural, on that one. They also have a no sweat $1,500 back in bonus bets. Wow. A lot of good things happening over at DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, let's go ahead and keep it moving. And let's talk about the Western Conference Finals. Game 1 going down this evening. Sean Barnard, here we go, sir. Dallas, 4.5. It was about 4 yesterday, so Dallas is catching 4.5. 207 is our total on this one. 8:35 tip this evening. Game being played in Minnesota. Where do we start with this? Where does your mind immediately go to with these two teams matching up?
Yeah, I've kind of landed on that. I think people are underselling how good this Mavericks team is a little bit. That Luka Doncic is the real deal and a guy that is not intimidated. He led the league in points per game on the road this year at over 33 per game. He's not going to be afraid to walk into that jungle in Minnesota and bring his A game. And that's kind of what I expect from tonight. That I'm leaning towards. I like the plus 4.5 for Dallas, and I also lean towards the under of 207. I think it's going to be a slow paced, grind them out defensive matchup where both teams are taking their time, controlling, working for the best shot. And if that's going to be the way the game plays out, I feel pretty good about Luka Doncic being on the right side of it. So I do like the plus 4.5. I do think the Mavericks are live dogs, and I think this is going to be a deep series, but I think Dallas comes out and punches first tonight.
Ooh, Dallas comes out and punches first. Defensively, everybody's making out the Minnesota Timberwolves to be, like the bad boy Pistons and just able to shut you down, handcuff you, as Ant said about Jamal Murray. Tonight, though, your thoughts on that one? Because I'm looking at, again, these two teams matched up 4 times all throughout the course of the season. They are two entirely different squads at this point in time. However, I still do believe that we're going to see points here. I think that the Dallas Mavericks are a team that want to get out there. We haven't seen their best game because Kyrie hasn't been all that great in the playoffs so far. Luka, I think, though he's battling, I get it. He's dealing with that bum right knee. Still, I think we can get more from Luka. I do like the supporting cast for the Dallas Mavericks. The T-Wolves deserve all the credit in the world. I have no issues with them being a 4.5 point favorite at home tonight. But I'm right there with you. I like the Dallas Mavericks in game 1 tonight. I like them in the series specifically too. But defensively, do you think Minnesota is going to be able to be effective, or even more so, hell, like what they were able to do against the Denver Nuggets in games 1, 2, and 7, where they were just really in their grill, shut them down?
Yeah, to be honest, no. That like the interesting factor of this is like this Timberwolves team was tailor-made and built to beat the Denver Nuggets. That is how they constructed this roster, is to match up well against them and be better than the Nuggets are. Then you look at the Dallas Mavericks, who are just a vastly differently constructed team. That Luka Doncic is one of the best in the NBA. He's up there probably all time with kind of the James Harden conversation of just hunting switches, where you're looking for the weak defender on the floor and you're taking them. And the hot seat in this situation is going to be the defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert. That I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities where Luka is going to be hunting him on a switch, trying to get Gobert in space and then taking him. And from what my money's worth is I think Luka is going to get the better of that. That we've seen Rudy struggle in those specific opportunities. To his credit, he's been far better this year than I've ever seen him. And I give him a ton of credit for not just playing drop coverage, not just defending around the rim, which has been the critiques from him over the year, particularly in Utah. That's all he did on the defensive end. And that is why I felt like the defensive player of the year awards were a little flawed then. To Gobert's credit, like he has stepped out of that and done more diverse things on the defensive end, which he needs to do to be productive. But I just don't know if he can hang on the perimeter with a guy like Luka. And I think that's going to be the matchup I'm most eager to watch. And more specifically, how hard do the Timberwolves fight to combat that? How much are you trying to not allow that to be the switch? How much are you fighting over screens, keeping Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels on him to not allow that to be the case? So I think that's going to be a big part of the game within the game. But ultimately, Luka is an expert at that I think he's going to find his opportunities. And you can also disrupt the defense a ton when you're trying so hard to prevent something. So I don't think they match up particularly well against this Dallas team. I do think Luka is going to find his opportunities. And ultimately, I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that I'll be looking for to see what the adjustments are from that standpoint.
Luka points on DraftKings, 28.5. Kyrie, 21.5. Cat, 19.5. Ant-Man, 27.5 coming in there. Some other players. PJ Washington back down to 12.5. I know, I've been on the PJ Washington train a few times. He's hit for me. Then there's games that he'll finish with 12, 10 points. But I do believe, not so much an X factor, but I do believe he is one of those guys in the supporting cast that I think they can get a little more from. And he's been willing to play above the rim, get dirty, get down low, hit some big shots.
Yeah.
Anything for you on PJ Washington? Anything for you on player point totals?
Yes, PJ Washington has been very important to this team. He's a guy that I had my eye on and was eyeing as a potential under in the same game parlay, but that number is a little lower than I would have liked it. We've seen his player props kind of get inflated as he's played incredibly well in the series, in the opening couple series. He's shooting the ball from three better than he really has at any point in his career. I don't know how much that's going to be continuing in this series, but he's still one of those X factor guys that he could have nights where he absolutely changes the game. And they have a nice kind of slew of these options: the Derek Lively's, the Daniel Gaffords, the PJ Washingtons. They have guys that are capable of playing above their means. Dante Exum's another guy who I expect to have a game where he makes an impact. So don't love Washington. I'm looking more at the main stars tonight. That Luka is probably my favorite play from a player prop perspective. I do think that he's going to be hunting offense, and even at the non 100% version of himself, he's still filling it up at a really high rate. So Luka is probably my favorite out of those you mentioned.
All right. Where are we at as far as when this game starts? Do we expect a feeling out process, or do we think that this game is going to be high level, just let's hoop, we're going to run it, and there's a chance for some big points being scored in the first quarter?
Yeah, I think the other side that I do think it's going to be a little bit of, guys taking a couple jabs and dancing around the edges, not going for the haymakers from the opening bell there. That it's going to be slow paced, it's going to be grinded out. That Minnesota's going to try and assert themselves defensively, and Dallas is completely comfortable soaking up the entire 24, waiting for the best shot. That Lucas plays at his own pace just about as much as anybody else in the NBA. That he's comfortable dribbling the ball, taking up all 24. Just like controlling the pace of his game and playing his way. So I think that's more of what I expect tonight. But I do lean towards the under of 207. I think that this is going to be a defensive showdown here.
All right, so we disagree on that. I think it goes over the total. Not by much, but I'm willing to take the over 207 here tonight. I like 213, 211. Again, we'll see how it plays out. And you're right. If they don't come out and firing, that's going to be a tough number to hit. But anything's possible. Again, the extra period last night, even though it went way over that total, I do think that we're going to see some scoring in this one, and maybe everyone's going to start to feel each other out a little bit more in games 2 and 3 and slow it down a little bit. But right here, right now, game 1, you and I are disagreeing as far as total, but that's all right. You are the man with the plan here. So, Sean, let's get right to it, man. Your thoughts on the same game parlay tonight? Where are you looking for game 1 Western Conference Finals?
Yeah, so night 2 of the same game parlay here. I mentioned Luka Doncic as my favorite player prop. I'm going with the alternate line to get him to 30 points tonight. But I do think he gets the 30, slightly above the 28.5, which I believe that number is sitting at minus 118. So bump him up to 30. I do think it's worth it. And then to add to that, I think a lot of those points come from beyond the three-point arc. The over 3.5 three-pointers for Luka Doncic I like as well. And the last piece, staying with the Dallas Mavericks, Daniel Gafford over 14.5 points and rebounds. That Gafford, I think, has really asserted himself as probably like the alpha or the more adult or ready win now piece for this center unit that they've kind of rotated through. Derek Lively taking a bit of a backseat. I think that continues in the series. I think he's a good matchup for Rudy Gobert. His physicality and the strength that he plays with. He's played as much as 27 minutes in the last series. That's more of the opportunity I'm expecting with that. And in the process, I absolutely think he can clear the 14.5 points and rebounds there. So Luka Doncic over 3.5 threes, Luka Doncic over 30 points, and Daniel Gafford over 14.5 points and rebounds. That's a plus 400 same game parlay right there.
Boom. 4-1. We love that. Nice number there. And 3 legs. And of course, you got Luka in there 2 times. So that's always a good thing in Mavericks games. Let's see it, baby. Let's go. I believe that would be 3 straight. And that's a hell of a start. Anyways, once again, the challenge has been set, and Sean Barnard knocked that out of the park yesterday, 2 for 2 with his SGPs. Tonight, going for 3 in a row. All right, let's keep talking about this Western Conference final of game 1 tonight in the at WCF here. As far as Kyrie, because the one thing that I'm seeing a little bit more, especially in the final couple games against OKC, is he was taking his shots. He was missing them. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're going to all of a sudden start falling. But these are shots that we've been accustomed to seeing Kyrie make. Pulling up DraftKings Sportsbook right now and taking a look at what Kyrie is, I think it should be like, what, about 19 and a half, 20 and a half? 21 and a half. 21 and a half is his total. Again, Kyrie Irving is a guy that can fill it up. If those shots are falling, he's going to be consistent. He's going to continue to take them. Are you anything looking at Kyrie, whether it is points, under, whatever, anything Kyrie for you tonight?
Yeah, I'm completely staying away. And if you made me pick a side, I'm leaning towards the under here. That, like, Kyrie, I think in his head is doing all the right things by playing team basketball, being a guy that is like adapting to what the team needs. He's absolutely defending harder. He's being more willing as a passer, all these things. But I still get frustrated by like the reason that you are Kyrie Irving and the great basketball player that you are is because of how dynamic you are as a scorer. And he needs to lean on that a little more. Like, as much as you mentioned him having his shots in the final game against the Thunder, he did shoot 23 shot attempts. That was the highest all season or all series. And looking below that, we're talking shooting 5 of 11, 4 of 11, 10 for 17, 2 for 8. That's just not enough volume that we want to see from him. Like, he had 9 points on 2 of 8 shooting in game 2 of that series. And yes, he had 11 assists. Yes, he was diming, but like, you just got to be in a little bit more of attack mode if you're Kyrie Irving. So, but I need to see it. I'm staying away until that is the case. It wouldn't shock me if this is the round where he starts to break things open and go for it. And I'm very curious what the matchup standpoint is. My guess would be that Jaden McDaniels gets Luka Doncic and Anthony Edwards gets Kyrie Irving. So it's not going to be easy for him to get to his spots by any mean. But for now, I'm staying away until I actually see it from Kyrie Irving in the series.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, look, if I'm Jason Kidd, again, Kidd's got that player perspective, so he would never do it. But I would pull Kyrie to the side and be like, "Man, we need you. Like, this is a superstar round, right? These final two, and Kyrie knows what it takes to win a championship. So, this would be a point that I would lean on him a little bit more, saying, Luka's been doing his thing, and of course he's dealing with it, but we need you to be a little bit more assertive. And Kyrie's got that potential. He could do it, man. He can go out there and drop 30 on you. But if he's not consistently getting those shots up, it is a big ask there. But we'll see how it plays out tonight. Again, game 1 WCF, and all taking place in Minnesota. Not the craziest home court advantage, right? As we saw Denver go in there and win 2 straight. So I'm not really all that worried about the home court advantage for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Dallas seems to be playing a little bit better on the road, if I'm remembering that correctly too.
Yeah, one of the best road teams in the NBA is the Dallas Mavericks, and Luka the best road scorer in the entire league. So yeah, they're not afraid. I don't think in general I'm a little bit of a home court is overrated kind of guy, and I think we're seeing that in these NBA playoffs. I do think the Timberwolves fans are absolutely going to bring it. Like, I do think that there will be an energy and an environment in there that will be helpful to the team. But at the end of the day, it's all about basketball, and I don't think Luka's going to blink at the moment. Saw him saying to the Thunder fans, thanks for paying to watch me as he's leaving the court and that type of thing. So yeah, Luka, I don't think minds being the villain either.
All right. DraftKings has a bunch of other things that you can wager on, from the exact outcome of the NBA Finals, of course, playoff specials they got going on right now, winter specials, all sorts of fun stuff. Make sure you check out what they have to offer. One wager they're flashing right here, Sean. First-time winner this year, yes, plus 255, no, minus 330. If you hit the yes, that means the Pacers or the Timberwolves are winning the NBA championship.
I don't hate that. Timberwolves absolutely have a chance. I mean, like, I do think, like, as much as Boston, it will be a failure if they don't win an NBA championship this year because the red carpet is just laid. I do think there's very much a world where, like, Boston has looked like the best team in the NBA from a statistical standpoint. They haven't quite looked at it from an eye test standpoint to me, that we still see some of the mistakes that they make down the stretch, some of like the a little bit of immature decision making in crunch time, which you even last night, like Tatum's the shot selection when they were down 3 and him shooting that fadeaway too. It's miraculous that they've obviously found a way to overtime and ultimately won the game. But like, the actual route to getting there was not as clean as it should be for this championship contender with all this playoff experience. So I do think there's a world where if Minnesota can beat the Mavericks, they absolutely can beat the Celtics. And frankly, I might feel a little better about Minnesota in that Boston matchup than I do about them in Dallas in this round.
Okay. It's good stuff, baby. Here we go. Game 1 tonight, WCF. Looking forward to it. And, of course, get those wagers in. Before you get out of here, Sean, let's go ahead and real quick on the 76ers front.
Mhm.
I saw our good friend Beef tweet something now. Latest mock draft over at ESPN has the Sixers selecting Devin Carter at 16. Quote, out of Providence, quote, the blend of experience, athletic tools, defensive motor, and high level intangibles Carter brings figures to hold strong appeal to playoff caliber teams in this range of the draft. Close quote. Your thoughts on Devin Carter, age 22, out of Providence?
Yeah, this is my favorite pick. This is
Ooh.
the number one guy on my Sixers big board right now, and I don't think that's changing until draft time. He's very Josh Hart like that. He's a wing trapped in a guard's body. Everyone was a little bit surprised when he got to the combine and measured in his 6'3" because he plays far bigger than that. Averaged 8.7 rebounds per game this year. Shot 37% from three. He brings that energy defensively. He is like a high impact guy that you're gonna feel when he's on the court. I love him. I think he would fit as sort of this 3-and-D type archetype. He's a little more defense than he is 3-point shooting, but he's shown improvement, and 37.7% is absolutely passable as long as that translates to the NBA level. I would love Devin Carter. That would absolutely be my preference. I think that he's like shown development year in, year out, and still at the start of things. And that energy, that effort level, that like will to win that he shows is absolutely what the Sixers team should be looking for. So I think he's a legitimate role player from day one, and those are the types of guys that they should be targeting.
Excellent. All right. Looking forward to it, baby. NBA drafts. 3 weeks, about a month away in the month of June. Yeah, I
About
think
that
it's the
time.
21st. Yeah, exactly. Sean_Bernard1. Sean, before you get out of here, you watching any of the WNBA?
Little bit. I've checked in. Saw a couple LA Vegas Aces game or LA Aces game. So checked in on a couple of those. Watched a little bit of Caitlin Clark. Starting to get in, dip my toes in, and find who all these players are. To be honest.
Yeah, I'm same. I'm been looking around, and I did wager. I got one official play that is not probably the smartest, but I took Cameron Brink to be the rookie of the year over Caitlin Clark.
She seems to have quite a few fans, so you might not be alone in that push there. So I don't fully hate that.
Unfortunately, I got it at 12-1. It's now up to 15-1, so that's a bad bet. The reason why, first of all, like Caitlin is God. The one thing I would tell you is what's really impressive to me is that she is literally taking everybody's best shot. The
Yeah.
defense that they are throwing at Caitlin Clark is insane. The 2 games that I was able to watch, I forget who. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to act like I know who these girls are, but this one girl in that last game was all over her. And, look, Caitlin, she's in good shape. So I don't mean it like this, but like to me, it would be in her best interest to beef up because she's going to have to shove some of these people off, man. They are swarming her.
Yeah.
And she's got a good first step. It's not the quickest, but she was able to penetrate. To be honest with you, Sean, when I look around that game, around that floor, both games that I was able to watch, they came up just short. It was against Connecticut. It was at home. They came up just short. Like, and I mean this with all due respect, because I think it speaks to the league itself, less about Caitlin Clark taking a shot at her. As athleticism, like these girls are leaps and bounds more athletic, more fat, more quicker than Caitlin Clark, if that makes sense. Caitlin's a hell of a shooter, unbelievable player, and she deserves so much love and praise and everything along those lines. Because look, we're even talking about it. But if you want my basketball take, my true my eye X's and O's watching it, she's got a lot to prove, and I know she's gonna be able to knock them down, but to being that next revolutionary player, I don't know if she's going to be because the league is that good.
Yeah. And I think that was a large part of the conversation that was kind of critiquing Caitlin Clark, that she's not going to walk in and change the game from day one. That's what we're seeing. Just the WNBA as a whole is far better than a lot of people give it credit. For Caitlin Clark specifically, I'll say I want to see her playing transition a little more. Saw the deep 3-pointer that kind of took the house down in that latest game. That's when I think she's at the best, when you have defenses on their heels. They're not like set on what they're doing in a half-court setting where they can get set up, prevent you from getting into your sets and running your action there. So I would much prefer to make an effort to get out and transition and also leverage herself as a passer. As much as like she's a little bit cut from the Trae Young mold in my mind from this, where like Trae Young gets praised as like this big shooter all the time. What always jumps out to me most in his game is how creative he is as a passer. I think Caitlin Clark is cut from that same mold, that she's a really good playmaker. I think she needs to lean on that a little more to open up everything in her game. And I also think people are also just understanding this concept of the team that got the first overall pick. tends to not have the pieces ready to win right then. So I think everyone's seeing that a little bit on full display as well.
I will fully admit I didn't really connect the dots on that one. Nice work by you. Yeah, I didn't really think about it, to be honest with you. Again, learning the ropes. I think there's 12 teams in the league. But man, just watching it, and I knew it too because I've been watching some of the championship series, especially last year when I watched New York and Vegas. And I think dating back 2 years ago, more so college to Final Four. I was watching a lot of the women's college Final Four in the last few years, even before the last 2 years. So you just saw the athleticism and just changing the game. And I thought one thing about Caitlin, and way too early to even not believe this anymore, but she is going to change it because she's got that, again, the long way to go, but she is the Steph Curry-esque type of player where she's got logo range and the free opportunity to pull up wherever she wants, as she did in that game. So I think she will continue to change the game in that manner, which puts butts in seats and eyeballs. That's what we all love. That's why the game changed so much with Steph. You brought up Trey. I think that's a great comp there. But, just from my eyes and watching the damn game, I go, wow, these girls are tough.
Yeah.
And they are in her grill, and that's not going to stop.
Yeah, no, it absolutely isn't. I do think she'll adjust. The athleticism factor is real here, that you can see it. Like, it jumps off the page, and
Yes.
that's not something that I don't know how many people expected that, but there are girls that are absolutely higher level athletes than Caitlin Clark that she needs to figure out. Now, granted, it's not like Steph Curry's the greatest athlete in the NBA, and there's other people. That's Luka Doncic, another example of guys that find ways around it when you're talented enough as a hooper and as a basketball player. So I do think that she will ultimately find her way. But it's going to be a learning curve this year, and it's kind of cool that people are getting in on the ground floor to watch this, because I still am pretty open-minded and do believe that in the long run, she will become everything she's praised to be. It's just going to take her some time to get there.
She's got to work on a little bit more. Look, you just brought up Luka, and I think that's right. Where, first of all, top of this, let's just start with the coaching. Coaching is only going to help her.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding the players, the teammates, playing with a girl like that, what they need to do. If it is the number one goal to get her open, she's going to have to continue to work and come through screens and 2 to 3 screens. Who knows? But and that starts with coaching. That's number one. She can't do that alone. But like I said, just watching, she seems to be pretty strong with the right, and it's just all right, you got to be a little bit quicker with those dribbles. She's a rookie.
Yeah.
I'm sure she knows it. She knows more ball than me, so she knows when she's watching tape, she's got to be better in certain areas, and we'll see what she's made of over these next few games this year or the next games in this season, and of course, moving on. But it is exciting to have something new and everybody watch it. I'm right there with you on that one. Any final thoughts?
I think it's great. Even to some extent, it sounds a little strange to say, but seeing the criticism and the hot takes for the WNBA, that means it has arrived. That people talking about it, people being fired up about it. As much as this is a little bit new lens that a lot of these players are being viewed by, and I guess being put in front and center in a way that can impact both negatively and positively. But that's a good thing that there is all this coverage, all this buzz about it, that people want to talk about the WNBA. So yeah. I do think it is at its ground floor. It's only getting better, but a huge testament to how much work has been put in over the years, long before there was a Caitlin Clark and all the other women that have come through and built this league up to what it is. So I still think it's just the start, and excited to continue diving deeper into it and learning more about it myself.
And wagering on it, because there's opportunity to win. As Jared Smith, our good friend, Fox Sports Radio's own, every Saturday morning, he went 3-0 and few props. And Julian Edlow, who joins me every Wednesday, he's putting out some WNBA props. I believe in these guys, and they've cashed a few tickets. So, look, let's enjoy it. Let's have some fun. It's good basketball, and you can wager on it. Why not? Let's go. All right, Sean Barnard, fantastic stuff. Good luck on those plays. Let's catch another same game parlay. What do you say, sir?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Go, Luka.
There you go. All right, that will do it for us. Once again, at foxphlgambler.com. If you missed anything, this has been another edition of Picks and Roll.